According to Matthew chapter 8, verse 14 through 34. And Jesus, on coming into Peter's house, saw his mother-in-law lying down and sick with fever. So he touched her hand, and the fever left her, and she got up and began ministering to him. But after it became evening, people brought him many demon-possessed persons, and he expelled the spirits with a word, and he cured all who were faring badly, that there might be fulfilled what was spoken through Isaiah the prophet, saying, He himself took our sicknesses and carried our diseases. When Jesus saw a crowd around him, he gave the command to shove off for the other side. And a certain scribe came up and said to him, Teacher, I will follow you wherever you are about to go. But Jesus said to him, Foxes have dens, and birds of heaven have roosts, but the Son of Man has nowhere to lay down his head. Then another of the disciples said to him, Lord, permit me first to leave and bury my father. Jesus said to him, Keep following me, and let the dead bury their dead. And when he got aboard a boat, his disciples followed him. Now look, a great agitation arose in the sea, so that the boat was being covered by the waves. He, however, was sleeping. And they came and woke him up, saying, Lord, save us, we are about to perish. But he said to them, Why are you faint-hearted, you with little faith? Then, getting up, he rebuked the wind and the sea, and a great calm set in. So the men became amazed and said, What sort of person is this, that even the winds and the sea obey him? When he got to the other side, into the country of the Gadarenes, there met him 2 demon-possessed men, coming out from among the memorial tombs, unusually fierce, so that nobody had the courage to pass by on that road. And look, they screamed, saying, What have we to do with you, Son of God? Did you come here to torment us before the appointed time? But a long way off from them, a herd of many swine was at pasture. So the demons began to entreat him, saying, If you expel us, send us forth into the herd of swine. Accordingly he said to them, Go. They came out and went off into the swine, and look, the entire herd rushed over the precipice into the sea and died in the waters. But the herders fled, and going into the city, they reported everything, including the affair of the demon-possessed men. And look, all the city turned out to meet Jesus, and after having seen him, they earnestly urged him to move out from their districts. According to Mark chapters 4 and 5. And he again started teaching beside the sea, and a very great crowd gathered near him, so that he went aboard a boat and sat out on the sea. But all the crowd beside the sea were on the shore. So he began to teach them many things with illustrations, and to say to them in his teachings, Listen, look, the sower went out to sow. And as he was sowing, some seed fell alongside the road, and the birds came and ate it up. And other seed fell upon the rocky place, where it, of course, did not have much soil, and it immediately sprang up because of not having depth of soil. But when the sun rose, it was scorched, and for not having root, it withered. And other seed fell among the thorns, and the thorns came and choked it, and it yielded no fruit. But others fell upon the fine soil, and coming up and increasing, they began to yield fruit, and they were bearing 30-fold, and 60, and 100. So he added the word, Let him that has ears to listen, listen. Now when he got to be alone, those around him with the 12 began questioning him on the illustrations. And he proceeded to say to them, To you the sacred secret of the kingdom of God has been given, but to those outside all things occur in illustrations, in order that, though looking, they may look yet not see, and though hearing, they may hear and yet not get the sense of it, nor ever turn back, and forgiveness be given them. Further he said to them, You do not know this illustration, and so how will you understand all the other illustrations? The sower sows the word. These then are the ones alongside the road where the word is sown. But as soon as they have heard it, Satan comes and takes away the word that was sown in them. And likewise, these are the ones sown upon the rocky places. As soon as they have heard the word, they accept it with joy. Yet they have no root in themselves, but they continue for a time. Then, as soon as tribulation or persecution arises because of the word, they are stumbled. There are still others who are sown among the thorns. These are the ones that have heard the word, but the anxieties of the system of things and the deceptive power of riches and the desires for the rest of the things make inroads and choke the word, and it becomes unfruitful. Finally, the ones that were sown on the fine soil, and those who listen to the word and favorably receive it, and bear fruit 30-fold, and 60, and 100. And he went on to say to them, A lamp is not brought to be put under a measuring basket or under a bed, is it? It is brought to be put upon a lampstand, is it not? For there is nothing hidden except for the purpose of being exposed. Nothing has become carefully concealed but for the purpose of coming into the open. Whoever has ears to listen, let him listen. He further said to them, Pay attention to what you are hearing. With the measure that you are measuring out, you will have it measured out to you. Yes, you will have more added to you. For he that has will have more given to him, but he that does not have, even what he has will be taken away from him. So he went on to say, In this way the kingdom of God is just as when a man casts the seed upon the ground, and he sleeps at night and rises up by day, and the seed sprouts and grows tall, just how he does not know. Of its own self the ground bears fruit gradually, first the grass blade, then the stalk head, finally the full grain in the head. But as soon as the fruit permits it, he thrusts in the sickle, because the harvest time has come. And he went on to say, With what are we to liken the kingdom of God? Or in what illustration shall we set it out? Like a mustard grain, which at the time it was sown in the ground, was the tiniest of all the seeds that are on the earth. But when it has been sown, it comes up and becomes greater than all other vegetables, and produces great branches, so that the birds of the heaven are able to find lodging under its shadow. So, with many illustrations of that sort, he would speak the word to them, as far as they were able to listen. Indeed, without an illustration he would not speak to them, but privately to his disciples he would explain all things. And on that day, when evening had fallen, he said to them, Let us cross to the other shore. So after they had dismissed the crowd, they took him in the boat, just as he was, and there were other boats with him. Now a great violent windstorm broke out, and the waves kept dashing into the boat, so that the boat was close to being swamped. But he was in the stern, sleeping upon a pillow. So they woke him up and said to him, Teacher, do you not care that we are about to perish? With that he roused himself and rebuked the wind, and said to the sea, Hush, be quiet. And the wind abated, and a great calm set in. So he said to them, Why are you faint-hearted? Do you not yet have any faith? But they felt an unusual fear, and they would say to one another, Who really is this? Because even the wind and the sea obey him. Well, they got to the other side of the sea, into the country of Gerasenes. And immediately after he got out of the boat, a man under the power of an unclean spirit met him from among the memorial tombs. He had his haunt among the tombs, and up to that time, absolutely nobody was able to bind him fast, even with a chain, because he had oftentimes been bound with fetters and chains, but the chains were snapped apart by him, and the fetters were actually smashed, and nobody had the strength to subdue him. And continually, night and day, he was crying out in the tombs and in the mountains, and slashing himself with stones. But on catching sight of Jesus from a distance, he ran and did obeisance to him. And when he had cried out with a loud voice, he said, "What have I to do with you, Jesus, Son of the Most High God? I put you under oath by God not to torment me." But he had been telling it, "Come out of the man, you unclean spirit." But he began to ask him, "What is your name?" And he said to him, "My name is Legion, because there are many of us." And he entreated him many times not to send the spirits out of the country. Now a great herd of swine was there at the mountain feeding. So they entreated him, saying, "Send us into the swine, that we may enter into them." And he permitted them. With that, the unclean spirits came out and entered into the swine, and the herd rushed over the precipice into the sea, about 2,000 of them, and they drowned one after another in the sea. But the herders of them fled and reported it in the city and in the countryside, and the people came to see what it was that had happened. So they came to Jesus, and they beheld the demon-possessed man sitting, clothed, and in his sound mind. This man had had the legion, and they grew fearful. Also, those who had seen it related to them how this had happened to the demon-possessed man and about the swine. And so they started to entreat him to go away from their districts. Now, as he was boarding the boat, the man that had been demon-possessed began entreating him that he might continue with him. However, he did not let him, but said to him, "Go home to your relatives and report to them all the things Jehovah has done for you and the mercy he had on you." And he went away and started to proclaim in the Decapolis all the things Jesus did for him, and all the people began to wonder. After Jesus had crossed back again in the boat to the opposite shore, a great crowd gathered together to him, and he was beside the sea. Now one of the presiding officers of the synagogue, Jairus by name, came, and on catching sight of him, he fell at his feet, and entreated him many times, saying, "My little daughter is in an extreme condition. Would you please come and put your hands upon her, that she may get well and live?" At that, he went off with him, and a great crowd was following him and pressing against him. Now there was a woman subject to a flow of blood 12 years, and she had been put to many pains by many physicians, and had spent all her resources, and had not been benefited, but rather had got worse. When she heard the things about Jesus, she came behind the crowd and touched his outer garment, for she kept saying, "If I touch just his outer garments, I shall get well." And immediately her fountain of blood dried up, and she sensed in her body that she had been healed of the grievous sickness. Immediately also Jesus recognized in himself that power had gone out of him, and he turned about in the crowd and began to say, "Who touched my outer garments?" But his disciples began to say to him, "You see the crowd pressing in upon you, and do you say, 'Who touched me?'" However, he was looking around to see her that had done this. But the woman, frightened and trembling, knowing what had happened to her, came and fell down before him and told him the whole truth. He said to her, "Daughter, your faith has made you well. Go in peace and be in good health from your grievous sickness." While he was yet speaking, some men from the home of the presiding officer of the synagogue came and said, "Your daughter died. Why bother the teacher any longer?" But Jesus, overhearing the word being spoken, said to the presiding officer of the synagogue, "Have no fear, only exercise faith." Now he did not let anyone follow along with him except Peter and James and John, the brother of James. So they came to the house of the presiding officer of the synagogue, and he beheld the noisy confusion and those weeping and letting out many wails. And after stepping in, he said to them, "Why are you causing noisy confusion and weeping? The young child has not died, but is sleeping." At this they began to laugh scornfully at him. But having put them out, he took along the young child's father and mother and those with him, and he went in where the young child was. And taking the hand of the young child, he said to her, Talitha Kumi, which translated means, Maiden, I say to you, get up. And immediately the maiden rose and began walking, for she was 12 years old. And at once they were beside themselves with great ecstasy. But he ordered them again and again to let no one learn of this, and he said that something should be given her to eat.